January 4th at 6:30, and I'm going to call this meeting of the Concord Solar Implementation Task Force to order. We are all in the room, so we do not need to take a roll on that, and we're underway. So the first item is review available minutes as available and take any action. These only went out this afternoon. And so I'm apologetic about that, but if you haven't had a chance to review them, I'm happy to defer approval of these minutes or discussion of them until the next meeting. It's just that we haven't had much time, and I'm happy to move that along.
That's a good idea.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay, chair's report is relatively minimal. Since the last meeting was December 21st, and then we had
Sits over there.
let the minutes reflect that Phil Villers is joining the meeting at like 6:32. Yeah. Since the last meeting, we had a holiday interval between Christmas and New Year's, so not a lot going on, but there was one thing that occurred during our meeting last time. An email was sent from the superintendent to myself and Charlie and another member of the Concord Climate Action Committee, just informing us that the things that we had been doing in interacting with a student, in being on the campus to more or less identify the campus as a site where solar might be, something we'd be interested in within the committee that was set up, called the Sustainability Committee of the school system, that these activities were not in keeping with whatever the proper processes were. And so
I own the students and you don't.
I don't want to get too deeply into the wheres and wherefores of it, but you have the email, so you see the concerns that the superintendent raised, and I'm just going to leave it at that for now.
Do we come back to that at some point? I
We
think we should probably clear the record.
Well, from my perspective, I didn't feel as though we were doing anything untoward. Our interaction with the student was a continuation of an interaction that I had personally had with that student, even leading up to the warrant article that established our committee. She was a student activist who had an interest in making a statement at town meeting, and in the process of drafting that statement, she consulted with me before she finalized it. So it was a continuation of that activity. Charlie reached out to her and said, well, we're now up and running, and we'd like to carry on with you. And that was something that the superintendent found was out of bounds, because we hadn't followed processes that we need to follow up on and find out what appropriate processes are, because we do feel as though if the campus is a likely place where these things are going to be installed, that our outreach with the students and the faculty is something that would be important. So we need to circle back with the superintendent and understand what the proper processes are for this.
Who believes in freedom of speech anyway?
Oh, no, we don't. Yeah, it's
No, this
a little
isn't freedom
random.
of
This is
speech.
really freedom of speech thing. It's the campus is specifically for the education and the promotion of the students, best personhood, and it it interacts with the community, and as the students interact with the community, I think that it does matter that the schools have an interest in that those interactions are productive.
Interest, absolutely.
So, yeah, we'll leave it at that, and we intend to follow up. Charlie and I were both named in that email, and we intend to follow up with the superintendent to just understand what the proper process is, because the solar task force is still interested in solar on campus. So that's, and that we consider that to be a policy goal of the community. And the campus is within the service territory of the light plan. And it's part of the community. So, you know, we're doing what we can, but however we did it before, doesn't seem to have been done appropriately. So I'll leave it at that. I just, yeah.
More than one thing,
Yeah.
because I was concerned about reading it, I don't know, but there was some allusion to it, I'll just read it because I can't speak to it otherwise. It
Yeah.
said, but I wanted to say that the change to the district sustainability committee meeting agenda in November led to the coordinated abandoning the plan after feeling pressure to do so. That's a really strong statement.
It is.
And I'm concerned about that statement, so I don't know what.
Well, I think we should discuss it.
If you want to
We should
discuss it.
clarify what happened,
Yeah.
so that everyone is on the same page.
To clarify quickly what happened, Brad Hubbard Nelson is a regular participant. He's on the Climate Action Committee. He's the chair of the Climate Action Committee. He has a regular interaction with Priscilla Guiney, who's the person in charge. She reports directly to the superintendent, apparently. She's in charge of running these monthly sustainability meetings. They cover all kinds of activities that the students engage in to do things like composting, recycling, anything that's a sustainability activity. And they bring those to the attention of this group. Eric attends. And I, with an introduction from Brad, who said, hey, the Solar Task Force is looking at the campus, and he CC'd me on the mail with Priscilla Guiney. Dean would love to come in and make a presentation to your committee. Her initial reaction was, well, that's going to take at least an hour. That would probably fill up my whole agenda. How about we do that on December 21st or November or January 24th or whenever the next two meetings were? My response was, look, I've made a presentation to the town meeting in 6 minutes to get the Solar Task Force up and running. I think I can do a presentation in about 10 minutes, take about 10 minutes of questions. And I would prefer, if possible, to be on your November 30th agenda rather than wait another cycle. She moved her agenda around. It was a very, it's to me, felt like it was just an email exchange with a very collaborative feeling. And you know, when push comes to shove, I did take the 10 minutes, but there were a lot more questions. So it probably took 15 or 20 minutes of questions. And Eric lost his slot in the presentations. So he was going to do something. I don't know what you were going to do. You were going to present something.
The general presentation about sustainability.
Okay, so
It was pressure, and I just like,
No.
what happened, right? But
Well, I went over the emails and I can't see any evidence of any pressure whatsoever.
so my sense of this is that mischaracterizes it. To
Well,
be
they
frank,
took
that's
that-
my side of
Yeah.
it. And I have not reached out to Priscilla Guiney because she works for the school district. I don't want her in any way, you know, to be impacted negatively. I have my view of the record and I have the record. So
that's fine, I
my
think, I
50 cents.
appreciate it. I
Yeah.
just want to know.
Yeah, no, I
If
know.
someone asked
I know,
me,
because
didn't
it is
understand
quite,
all the
some of
details,
the ways in which things have been stated in that email are really quite
Okay, that's fine.
aggressive. So, you all have it now. To be clear, the original, list was sent to, Charlie, myself, and Brad Hubbard Nelson as the addressees, but it was CC'd to the chair of the regional district, who then turned around and sent it to the other members of the district committee.
Oh.
So they all have it, and I felt that you all needed to have it as well. So we all are on the same page. Okay, so that's what that's as much as I want to spend. I don't
Sounds
want to
good to me.
spend even that much time on it, frankly. I just needed it to be out in circulation. I need everybody to be aware
Yeah.
of what's going on. So the next piece of the puzzle here for us is to work on and come up with a result, because the school committee has agreed, at least Tracy agreed at the last meeting of the Solar Task Force, to put us on the agenda for their meeting, for the school committee's meeting of January 9th. And we would not be invited as a participant in that discussion. We could observe, obviously, but we would not be engaged in any kind of colloquy with the committee. They would just be discussing it among themselves. And so I felt that it was important to have some baseline information in their hands, which we'll just call a fact for lack of a better term, regarding our goals as a committee, our intent and our view of the campus as a possible site, and the way in which the mechanisms might work. Charlie took a lot of time to put a nice piece together, and I'm just looking for some feedback on it. Now, I know, Wendy, you've made, a serious run at it, and I see a huge amount of red line here. But before we dive in, because I haven't allocated like
Yeah.
a huge amount of the meeting to this, but before we dive in, one of the things that I think we can learn from the previous experience at working on the bridge article and for this experience is that if we're going to generate a report, people are going to go off and they're going to do what their assignment is, and they're going to do it by themselves because we're not allowed to go off and collaborate without imposing open meeting law rules, and it's just very cumbersome. So we're probably going to end up with individual assignments and individual writing that comes back. My take on it is we should pretty much look at what we get, and if it really is really off the mark, we adjust, but we take it more or less at face value, and we look for grammar, we look for substantive change, etc. But we just don't have the time or the energy as a committee to do what we did with that bridge article on a lot of writing. So on this one, I want us to try to take what we'll call a big picture view. If there are substantive things or grammar that need to be addressed, that's you, Phil. Okay, that I'm happy to hear about it. But
By grammar, I think we're talking about a grammatical error.
yeah, an error,
An error.
spelling errors, grammar errors. This is something that's not,
Improper sentence construction.
yeah.
So,
That's
so yeah,
because otherwise, I just don't think as a committee, we're going to be able to make progress on a reasonably dense report if we spend the kind of time that we did on that bridge article. We did, and even on this one, I don't know that we.
I think what we want to
Take the whole
focus on
meeting
are
to do that.
facts, or
Yeah.
do we have the facts right?
Right.
Is the story right? Have we said anything that's incorrect or misleading? Is it an honest appraisal of the situation? I tried to capture all the things that I knew that we had already discussed as a committee, and that, we're to some extent in our minutes, but certainly we're in our discussions and we're in our materials. And I tried to construct that into a narrative, and the kind of the narrative is to basically tell the entire story as we know it, including our approach as a committee to working with various parties, because I thought that Tracy was indicating, I think, that she didn't know what the plan was. And I said, well, that was the intent of our getting together with you, was to review the plan. Well, I think it moved to, well, not sure you know what you want to do or have a plan. I said, well, we do have a plan, and we've followed very closely after Cadmus, and we've structured an approach that we think answers the basic questions. Be glad, and I think, we said we'd be glad to put it on paper at that meeting.
Yeah.
We said
Yeah.
we would put that on paper for them to have for their meeting. We're not going to participate in that meeting, but it's for them to have to prepare for their meeting and to understand all of the things that has transpired so far with respect to the CCHS discussion. I think we could do the same thing for the landfill, because we had the same exact kind of conversations for the landfill.
I do think there's an opportunity with this piece of work to generalize it more broadly so that it is not so specifically to the campus, because there are going to be multiple opportunities that, are in the next agenda item, which is to work on the next report section. But there are going to be multiple opportunities around town where the people we work with, the activities we're anticipating are slightly different. But the fact is, the process is pretty decent. It's
Pretty straightforward.
straightforward. So I do think it has it has the potential to be something that we think of more generally, but right now, we need to get something in front of the school committee, so they are all working off the sheet music that we're able to provide for them, so that they don't have a lot of open questions. So we answer as many
That's right.
upfront as we can. I think that's the goal here. So, Bill, you look like you're about to say something.
Yes, what would happen if we took what I would call a proactive approach and wrote a one-page preliminary agreement, which we would send the school committee for their consideration, just because they in effect consistently taking the position, we don't know, we don't have anything before us, etc.
Yeah, but this puts it all before them.
They,
All the stuff
Exactly.
that we have that we had thought made sense, but you can't clap with one hand. You have to have a partner.
Absolutely,
you have
and
to
what
have
I'm
the other hand,
suggesting
no.
is possibility is if we propose a quote initial agreement, very brief, not a lot of details, would that push the ball forward? I'm throwing that out as an idea.
I think Charlie did a really good job putting the next steps together in terms of, we need partnership, right? We're not gonna move forward until
Right.
we have some common understanding that we have a mutual goal and there's something that we wanna do together. And once we have that, and we won't have that until after January 9th, so it's a discussion. And that what Charlie then said is that with that in hand, there's two things. There's the working on that agreement, which we would do collectively with them, along with separately working on sort of the technical details, and their input into
Yeah.
the scope and design of that is also equally important. So I think the document does that. And at this point, given where we're at in the process, slow and steady is good.
I think everybody should realize that Cadmus already did this.
Yeah, yeah.
Cadmus was already hired by the town, already reviewed all these properties, and already created a proposal for solar at CCHS. We have done really nothing more than what Cadmus has suggested in their own report. Furthermore, we have done nothing more than what is common sense about solar.
And
These
there's
are the
flexibility, so
obvious,
That's the starting point.
and that's the
Then
starting
we
point.
can
So
work
I think,
together to go to the next.
yeah, I
step.
think we are limited, Phil, a little bit in what we can do, because we are not invited to be participants at that meeting. And all we can do at this point is to suggest that this is the status, this is the situation.
The only,
But well,
yes,
did you read the document?
of course,
Okay,
that's an excellent document,
all right.
except for a picture of a site where I can't even figure out where the solar is.
Okay, we can explain that to you.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should come back to your point. I think it's a good point, but I think we should go through the document if we're all agreed that we want to finish this off and get this
Let me
submitted.
just briefly say what I think possibly is missing is, as a result of all the back and forth at the November 9th meeting, there is nothing that is literally on the table in terms of any kind of an agreement. And a one-pager might be the way to get things off the ground, filling it out.
Well, I think you're getting ahead of yourself.
I think based on the level of interaction we've had, Phil, that seems like it's being too aggressive and pushing. And we are looking for partnership, and then we go forward arm in arm. There are a lot of ways that could go forward. There could be all kinds of structural things we could do to make that partnership very workable. But right now, we just need to understand whether or not the schools are ready and willing to engage us. Right now, we just don't even have that. So we need them to just have base information about what our thinking is, and then we see where that leads.
I guess the only difference is I'm throwing out in its most primitive form, an offer on the table.
But we're not in a.
We're not in a position to do that. So I, you know,
You know,
I think we should also all understand that nothing that we have done has been intended to hem anybody in or constrict or restrain or narrow anybody's options. So this is completely open field, green field. And, you know, the schools can opt in and work with us. If they opt in and work with us, everything that we've written down so far can be changed. Furthermore, they can pull out. They can say, no, we don't want to do this, and we want nothing to do with solar at the school this year, and we can't talk about it this year. I mean, they could say that. They could say many things, but
and if they say that, when we move it at town meeting, we strike the CCHS campus from it, and we strike the numbers that we. put
so
in our
we've got to
estimates
say that
from it.
we are
It's not
totally,
complicated.
totally open and flexible
Yeah.
on this. We're not trying to sell anybody in anything. We think this is the right thing to do. But the schools have to decide this is the right thing to do as well. And if they do that, if they do decide it's the right thing to do, then we can work together.
Well,
If they don't, then we
my
can't work together.
concern is one of their alternatives to do absolutely nothing,
We can't,
literally nothing.
we
That's
cannot,
right, that's one of their.
that is an option.
That's
It's
their
a
option.
clear option. It's a fair option.
I don't mean turn it down, I mean, take no action at all.
Well, if that's true, this would be my opinion, if that's true, and we arrive at town meeting and they've taken no action, I would not move to do anything on the campus. That would be aggressive, and it would be it would be overreach on the part of the town to make a move towards the campus that they're not inclined to act on. So we would just take it off the warrant article and not move that chunk of it. We'll just move for the landfill and.
Well,
let
the
that
same in many ways applies to the landfill.
be. Yeah,
If the let's all be clear here. It is all somewhat speculative on our part that we can develop these properties. If the landfill doesn't pan out, let's say it's too expensive, or you know, it's not feasible for some reason. Well, we might not pursue that one.
right.
So I think we ought to all be a little bit more.
We're all talking about the same thing, how to deal with stalling.
Well.
Let's not call it stalling.
We're not gonna call it that.
We're not gonna call it that.
I would.
Well, okay, we have a meeting on January 9th. I think they do, and let's go through this document. We're trying to help them with their process. And we aren't trying to interfere with their process or get in the way. We're just providing some material that might help them with their deliberation.
So, can you just a comment as we get to this process? So I don't want to do a group sync on a document. I sent feedback on the document, mainly because I really believe that as we go forward and we have documents to craft, we must find a way to have someone just take a lead and to be able to receive feedback, not deliberate on it, but just receive the feedback and integrate it. Because, you know, having done minutes, that's how we always did minutes in other finance committee meetings. So, because we can't do it, completely agree. So I
It started
kind of.
with Charlie and sent it to me.
No.
Wendy, and then it was like back to
It's
me, and
when
I'm like.
we
oh,
start
hmm,
doing
hmm,
any kind of
yeah.
deliberation or comment, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But if we can just find a way to assign someone the task of integrating it.
I'm not so sure about that. I think we probably ought to table that
Well, I guess,
notion.
okay, so it's just
That's a
legal.
different, kind of a different subject.
It
Is how we
is,
edit
it is.
documents,
But
how
I
we
just,
do
what I was, my
documents.
second thought is, I don't need any more comments except for two things. One was, I do think that as we present the work of this committee, we have to remind them, it's not just implementing solar, it's creating a report.
Yeah.
For the plan, right?
Sure.
So that's important. And secondly,
But I'm
was
sorry, who are we reminding of that?
the school committee.
Why?
Because they don't know what our charge is. They're so out of the, I just feel like it's a simple sentence, right? Like, what is the charge? It's
What does
just-
that have to do with? What we put in the charge stuff is in the,
It's
it's
not
in the
really-
document.
It doesn't really say we're crafting report. It goes right in and says we're doing.
Well, no, but
It doesn't say anything about a report. It just says.
that would
we're
be
planning.
argumentative here, but I don't think at this point, we're concerned with the report. I think we're
No, I'm
concerned
just-
simply with them having a successful meeting on the 9th,
I
where
got,
they can explore this and decide what they want to do. That's all that document is
I
for.
just wanted us to be clear to say that we were. that our charge wasn't just to implement solar right now at that site, because our charge is really to draft a report and at the
Within-
same time, take significant effort in implementing something short term. That's my only comment. you're asking for
Okay,
comments.
all right.
That's
Okay.
one
That's good.
comment. The second is that there's someplace in the document where we were talking about working with them going forward, and I just wanna, I wanna be clear that we are also working with the light plant in this, that we're not gonna, like, I don't know if it was the MOU or someplace in the
Oh,
document where it
good
said
idea.
the STF, that will work with them, but I think any kind of document has to be with an actual town entity. And we're a committee, I get it, but I don't think that document would live on under us, but, so that was my only comment there, so there's my.
Well, we should be
comments on the
working, we should be working with all of these groups,
Absolutely.
but I didn't, what
document.
I thought was that the parties to an agreement to proceed is really the solar task force and the school. The agreement to proceed is simply an agreement to work together to figure out whether this is something we can do or
This was
want to
the
do.
MOU on how we were gonna support, that was my comment, because I thought that we had said it was the STF that would write that MOU. And I can go back and look at this in a minute, that was my only, I'm just trying to move this along, I'm giving you my feedback.
Why don't we put the whole thing up here so we can. can we
Trying to
put
find
on
it
the
on
screen?
Amazon, that's all.
So I thought that the notion of,
Can put it up there. I'm just-
I think we're here to do the staff work. The staff work includes vetting these opportunities,
Yeah,
and vetting means, it could mean DPU, the DPW, or the DPW, it could be CMLP, it could be,
right, I just.
it could be anybody, it could be any town entity.
Here, let me share my screen. if I can.
I don't even know where it was. And we don't have to jump right to this issue, Dean, we can go through this however you want to go through.
Well, I think this is the whole point of this agenda item is to go through this back.
Yeah, and let's get this, let's find out whether we have things that are wrong in there, or whether we're basically okay. I think just go by paragraph to see, is there a problem with any of these statements?
So the first one, which is where Wendy would just like some statement that not only are we out to build 20 megawatts as a community, but our charge specifies that we identify sites, implement projects, and produce a report to get us to the 20 megawatts. Just a clause that says that our charge includes a report to get us to the 20. It's not a huge problem, that's all.
Yeah.
You know,
Do you want to put the report deadline in there, which basically speaks to our urgency of getting some things moving? That may be.
I'd prefer to leave that off if we could. I don't think that
It's not an urgent
helpful.
deadline.
The report deadline has its own urgency, and I think I need to extend it. I think we're gonna have some challenges meeting it, so.
Yeah.
But we'll.
But the main initiative then is the warrant article and getting information for the warrant article and making decisions related to that. That's what's pushing this, and that's what putting this on the table right now.
Right,
It's not the
Well,
report. It's the
This is the warrant, this is getting
the warrant article.
an
is in
agreement
place.
so that we can
Yeah.
do, so that we can work toward the warrant
So,
article,
yeah.
otherwise we have to pull
We have to
them out of
we have
it.
to pull them out.
Yeah, so
Sure.
if something says, why are they coming to us now? It's because of the warrant article. Just simple.
That's right.
That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Well. Why are we coming to them now? Because our charge says we're looking for sites, and you have some good sites on the campus. That's why we're. You have some of the best sites in town.
Right,
Yeah, you have some of the best sites in town.
And as you said it very clearly, the now part is, otherwise we have to wait a year if we don't
That's
put
right.
it
Right, yeah.
warrant articles.
So department security agreement, see 1 or 2 projects in the near term. There's no requirement for immediate implementation. You're tasked to propose 1 or 2 projects in the next calendar year. And the schedule is TBD.
And a lot of this process stuff just follows the
Wait,
flow
what?
chart
Yeah.
that Dean put together.
The STF has discussed the process below, outlined below, which is that we just find it, we partner, we develop an agreement to partner. And that's, we just agree that the contours of the areas, we working together to pursue solar on that site. And once we agree to work together, it splits into 2 different things, technical and business. So this is pretty much in words, what my flow chart from the previous meeting had laid out, and we have a business track where then we get to, Phil, because we have a willing partner, we have a business track to come up with that initial agreement. Like, what are the basic terms that we want?
I'm wondering in the paragraph on financial viability, whether we should have some explicit words about financial viability. For instance, one of the ultimate goals is over its life, we expect to both provide something of national importance and save Concord taxpayers money.
Well,
Gain.
this is running out of the light plant. I'm not sure we're saving taxpayers. We can't say we're saving taxpayers, ratepayers, or anything. You know.
And then you allude to the school as a.
And we're not sure that the feasibility will necessarily lead to a positive outcome. So it's sort of caveated here. If feasibility has a positive outcome, you know, then we'll go forward. You
Well,
know,
over a 30-year period, which is what we're
Right.
talking about.
Yeah.
It's to me inconceivable that there isn't a positive financial outcome for the community. And so advertising it may not be a bad idea.
well, if just to take a side trip on that, if it's canopies, the answer is probably not. They're probably
Which is-
not a positive
Which is
outcome.
why we're probably not going to do that.
Well, we're not proposing it. So all I'm saying is, I don't know that we need to get. I mean, we will determine the financial viability of it. That's what this paragraph is alluding to.
And we will do that.
And
We have the models and
No,
tools to
that
do
I
that.
understand, but the missing part in my mind is the candy. The candy is ultimately, it'll be good for Concord taxpayers as well as the country as a whole.
Right, as well as the.
Well,
We can't.
we
say
didn't
that.
put any goals in here anywhere,
Right.
so
No,
this is really not about, we could have goals in here, I guess, yeah. Or the goal is to not cost the ratepayers any money, not cost the town any money, to add financial value to the overall
Light plant.
town
And
operation.
we're not saying that. And I'm saying
Well,
maybe that's a
well,
place to say it
but-
in a very brief term.
That's something we need to do?
It's not an unreasonable thing to say that our objective is to really primarily do a beneficial thing for the planet, but we are looking for things which also have the possibility of a financial benefit to the ratepayer.
All right, we'll put that in there.
You know, so let me make a note. I'm not gonna edit this in real time, but I'm gonna make a note.
You make a note, I didn't bring your copy of it, I should have done that, I should have brought a copy of the report.
If we're talking about additional benefits,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I saw in this, the sort of more intangible educational benefits that the school district could read by. Like bringing students to the site, talking about how it works. I think that's important to throw in there, if it's not in there already. More than just the, important sort of meat and potatoes. Financial stuff that we have is really key, but also just so the school district knows it's a big buzzword, get the students out there it's a learning experience, learning opportunity. Not sure what section you would think about putting that in, but.
Well, again, you're doing a little bit of selling, I guess
Yeah.
that's okay, you wanna sell them, yeah, it's got financial. I
We
think they kind of know
business.
that, I think they kind of know that it's got educational benefits, but I would think that.
Well, as a sustainability director,
Yeah.
I'd have to say that this also supports our.
sustainability
and resilience
goals.
plan. So I mean, you can say it's for the good of the planet, but it's also for the benefit of the town and the plan that the town has put together and supported.
That's a
Well,
good point.
that's been my
I would hope
take
these
on
things
this
are
all
known.
along is
Yeah, I
that
mean, I think
our
that's-
committee is
These things are
basically,
known.
Implicit, but.
It
Right.
was.
our
but
committee is
not-
following the policy of the
Yeah.
community
Yeah.
as laid out from Article 51 through the climate action plan to the solar task.
And it's all been explained at town meeting and,
Yeah.
right?
And we want to lead on that.
And I think it was explained in your presentation you made to Mrs.
Yes,
Guy's committee.
yes, it was.
So all these things are seriously in front of the school
Yeah.
already.
Okay, so I've got a couple notes on how we can just sort of like augment the benefits component of this paragraph or a couple more sentences of benefits. Is town meeting approval required? It will be required for funding, so I think that's correct. If we're asking for money, it's got to come from somewhere. That's a town meeting thing. So we're going to ask for funding based on our, based on this stuff. I think that's correct. Where are we in the process with the regional school committee? We've been prepared a high level assessment of the site, so this paragraph's kind of meaty, but it fundamentally is saying there's been a lot of work already done on this site. But in terms of our specific relationship with the school committee, we're not there yet. We need to, until the committee determines that it is interested in proceeding, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's pretty reasonable stuff. Why do we develop this warrant article that includes CCHS and what are its implications? So this is pretty much sort of saying, okay, if we don't ask now, then we have to wait a year. So we put it in, and if we want to take it out, we can take it out. If the school committee is not ready and nobody's in a position to make a willing partnership decision to move forward together, we just won't move it. We won't move their chunk. And we don't want these windows, which are pretty limited. They're once a year to escape us. So that's why it's in there.
In that possibility, I hope it never happens. Should we be making some efforts to have a backup project?
Well, we've got 3 projects on the table, Phil, and I think that's enough. We were asked to show momentum, and we chose 3, which is, it's more than just one. So not all of our eggs are in one basket. So if the campus itself and the school committee says, no, thank you, not at this time, we're not interested. We still have 1 in our back pocket. Now that one could break down, but we have 3. And
I'm just thinking that the number 3 sounds like a good choice.
Well, we can't change the projects.
Right.
We're trying to get to town meeting.
We're
stuck.
Yeah,
Either
the
we-
article's
either we
already,
get the ones
the
that we
article's
got
in
or
stone
we don't.
right now, so.
You can eliminate, you can't add at this point.
Well, quite honestly, the only thing that's in stone, that's in the article is money. So if you came back and said, we have this other project, we're gonna shuffle this whole thing around.
No, I don't think so.
It's not-
No, you can't do
Yeah,
that.
you can, you absolutely can. There's no,
So we can say we're gonna develop Baker Avenue or
Yeah.
something?
yeah, all we're asking for is money. And we're asking for, oh, that's right, it does say landfill and.
Can't do it.
That's right, we can't do it, we're stuck.
Based on those-
We're stuck, because we have locations in the article.
With addresses.
So with address, because you guys suggested address. So we're stuck because we did identify addresses.
Yes.
So-
It's okay.
Sorry.
It's fine.
You know what?
It's a
Yep.
strong initiative and momentum.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
It's what they wanted. We're doing-
Now see how
doing
far we
can.
can go. Yeah.
There
So-
aren't any great opportunities outside of those 3 at the moment.
I know there are,
Yeah.
it would take a lot more doing.
Yeah.
Frankly, so I think we've really taken a very good bundle here and doing our best to make it happen, so.
I think there's a hand up on the floor. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, from Dave? Yeah.
Dave, what do you like to say?
So far, you guys are doing a good job. The only thing I would add is the funding request by law should be coming from the light board. So not the task force.
Ah.
So you're gonna want to consider that.
I'm sorry, the funding,
The funding that you guys have in the article, that request should be coming from the light board by law, not a task force. So you guys should be coming to the light board, getting them to buy in.
we've,
They should be
I've
requesting town meeting.
already been to the light board, Dave, and
I understand.
I expect to go back again and again between now and
Sure.
town meeting. So if there's a legal requirement that the light board does something on the floor, we'll make sure that happens,
With the
And we
warrant
can talk
article.
offline too, Dean, if you want.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, good.
Um,
Okay, so the next section is what do we already know about this project? The first part was about process. How do we know to do this? How do we know about that and so forth? The rest of it is, what do we know about CCHS? And it turns out that we we know a tremendous amount about it. Now, whether these things will change based on the way the project framework is, might change over time, and it can change. I don't know, but I think these are just pretty straightforward statements about the situation. Anybody find anything to argue with? And
So that was a very general statement you made, Charlie. Is there a particular section of the report that you're looking, because you're looking
at this point, what is already known about this project at CCHS?
Okay,
What I said was all of the previous material was more generalized about the overall process. Now we're transitioning in. I just wanted to comment about this as we transition into. Okay, so I like I said, Tracy said, well, what if you guys don't really know much about this? We don't either. We don't know, and nothing is known. And I made the point multiple times at the meeting 2 weeks ago that yes, we already know a significant amount about this, and to the point where there's really very little work left to do by the school committee between now and town meeting. So that's what these items are, really. I don't know whether you want to go through each one, but
No.
we
I
could.
have one on the comment about what contribution will the project make to offsetting.
Which one?
On the, maybe. it's
where we are right
page,
now.
Yeah,
which is-
right there. So it says that additionally, this would offset 25% of the energy consumption. Do we know that?
Yeah, I went through pretty rough cut on it. And totaled up all the natural gas BTUs and the electricity, all the stuff.
But
And it also plays out pretty well if you compare it to CMS. Because CMS is significantly smaller, but also much more efficient than CCHS. But if you take the energy, both gas and electricity, and look at it in terms of what we're offsetting, these numbers here, 1,100,000 kWh does about 25%. Again, if you think about the comparison between the two, that even feels right.
yeah, I'm just wondering.
The building also, by the way, is only 50% as efficient as CMS, so,
Oh, really?
yeah. So it's, I don't want to say the exact numbers because I don't know what they are, but it's significantly large. Let's say it's twice as big. It's half as efficient. We got the same amount of energy. So we get 25%.
Maybe we just solved it
Offset.
because we're presenting to the high school and the high school knows their own energy and they're like, how do you know our energy? So maybe we can say.
Well, we
based
know
on
their
our
energy.
information.
We know their energy because it's been published by the town.
I'm just saying, just be cautious. We're presenting to them. It's their energy that maybe if we just say, we estimate that it's a 25% or something.
Or based on,
What you said,
2022
Based on your.
energy reporting to the town or something like that.
Oh, you want to be more circumspect about it.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
be more.
This may offset as much as 25%. I think that's a question that one would have, though, if you're sitting in that room. What difference does it make? I mean, are we doing much? Or are we doing only a little?
I mean,
Right.
maybe it's our estimate that it would estimate, maybe it's our estimate. Or something. And then I think it's worth reinforcing that.
Well, and again, I think this is the type of thing that we're going to firm up as we go through the process.
Actually, one of my next statements would be that we'll have a better, reinforcing the issue about the benefit to the ratepayer is something that could also follow.
Adding the word estimate, I think is a wise safeguard.
Who?
Adding the word estimate
And
is a
definitely,
wise safeguard.
I should have said as much as 25% estimating.
So
yeah,
Yeah.
fine.
it
That's
uses the little tilde to say we're adding approximately a certain amount of.
fine. Oh, yeah, no, I have no problem with that statement. It's more that it's
I'll
the.
put the little squiggle in there. That'll fix it. I only need to put the squiggle sign.
Yeah, there you go.
What do you call that?
Approximately, I don't know, the tilde,
Tilde, yeah. tilde.
What's it called?
the tilde.
Yeah,
Yeah, you didn't take Spanish, you don't know.
Oh, we.
Yeah, I mean, we could take the opportunity to also say that once the designs are done, we'll have more details on how this will affect. the
We could
ratepayer.
just say our current estimate.
Yeah.
Just say our current estimate.
Yeah,
Our current estimate.
If they're this far into it already. then
Yeah, our
never
current
gonna-
estimate, which is, we're early in the process, it's,
All this stuff is back of the envelope, because that's all we have right
oh, we
now,
have, but it's
That's
what
where
we
you
have.
start.
Yeah,
where you start.
okay.
I have a comment, so I think overall this is fantastic. My only worry is that we're bearing the lead a little bit here, and that I think the two most important things are, we're doing the drainage basin, we're doing the rooftop. And that it's only like a line, or it's not bold or something like that, is you have to read down a line in the report to be able to find exactly what we're building. I know it's mentioned up top a little bit, but I would just say if there's a way that we can maybe add some more detail to, okay, the CCHS rooftop has been designed for solar in its building. Or just bold it, something like that. I wanted to bring that up.
That ties in with my comment earlier. The figure that's attached, I find unintelligible.
The what?
The figure, he doesn't know where when you look at the basin, he doesn't know where that is on the campus.
Oh, well,
And I don't even know where the
they will know,
solar is.
they will know, this is not for you, this is for them. So
their
it could
campus.
be,
Should we
Without
clarify
being rude.
on the document, the warrant? Itself?
well, see, this page shows the panels in the drainage basin, and it shows the
Building.
school, shows the parking lot, and it shows beatings. So if you had looked at Google Earth, that you would see. And I don't, good point, maybe the people who are on the school committee don't know what this looks like. But I think they'll be able to identify this.
It looks built already, our job's done.
I know,
We
exactly.
have to, maybe highlight it or something.
I think the point was to see, well, can we fit 970 panels in that space? Can we do that? And what about the numbers that, the drawings that Cadmus did?
Yeah.
Let's validate those. We have our own tool, get it off the internet, boom, boom, and they fit. Now, I think the point that we've made in the document is this stuff could be put anywhere, on this field. So have at it, knock yourself out, put them, a chunk over here and a chunk over there, and twist them this way and twist them that way. We certainly need help from someone like Solar Design Associates, but we aren't dictating how this stuff should be laid out. We're just thinking, well, it's a possibility.
I may be
There
the
you go.
only one who finds that drawing unintelligible in terms of answering the question, where are the solar elements? I can't
I
tell.
think it's
them.
gonna be
Well, I
clear.
think
Well, we'll be very
you're
clear
one out of,
now.
you're 1 out of 6 here, so we're
So
gonna
look,
say,
look,
you gotta go study
yeah.
it again.
And by the way,
And here's the roof.
photo analysis is something that was involved in many years ago.
Here's the roof. You see the blue? Those are where the panels are.
So be it.
So
Going back to-
Gavin's point.
Yeah.
I think you should add a little bit more detail to these bullet points, or bring them up to the top of this bullet point list, or bold them, something to make them stand out and to give a little bit more reasoning as behind why we chose these two.
So this little grouping right
Yeah,
here.
this
about-
Why we chose one, two?
The drainage basin and the rooftop.
Because Cadmus chose them.
Yeah, but say that again, like the rooftop, because there's space up there, it was designed for solar, something like that, and then the drainage
And-
basin.
I think the rooftop, yeah, we should identify.
Because those are our key
You've also
points.
identified, you got the point.
Previously identified by the advisory, their campus
Yeah.
advisory committee.
Well, that's discussed,
Right.
that is discussed in here, the
Yeah.
campus
Right, but in
advisory
this
committee.
bullet, I think, because it does right now just says CC.
Because if those are like, this is what we need you to agree on, to only have like small bullet point at the end of a bullet point list saying. Just not giving any reasoning, I think we
Yeah,
should
we
just
just-
build that out a little bit more,
Consistent with the campus advisory
something like that,
report, we support the recommendation,
so,
something like that.
yeah.
Just make reference.
Even just bolding them to help.
Yeah.
Right, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, bring the most, the first ones they see, the ones we talk about, and then the other ones drop off, like canopies and everything else, might as well keep them low on the list.
Yeah, we can move those up to the top,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
make them stand out a little more.
Yeah.
That's what we want them to-
In other words, switch these bullets around.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Put
and
your most
bullet-
desirable on top.
We want them to agree to that, and we're kind of keeping it, it's not the end of a 3 or 4 page document, that is just bullet points, so. Maybe we can just rework that, we don't wanna edit it live, but. To make it stand
I
out,
made a note.
Well, but also you say Cadmus identified 4 sites at CCHS, and we're recommending 2 of them. and then you go to the landfill, which isn't C.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true, yeah,
So-
yeah.
No, the
The landfill
landfill,
is a piece of the campus.
Oh.
That's not, that we're not gonna go
Well,
after. That's
we're
where
not
they're
gonna do the
trash.
landfill on the campus.
Well,
The
but-
There's a
campus
separate
landfill.
landfill on campus.
It's the
And
skate
it
park
should be the
landfill.
campus,
The campus
campus
landfill.
former landfill
Right.
versus.
They know that, they know, they work there. They know what this
And when
is.
it, and the sentence
Come on.
says that
Okay, got
it's,
a cap landfill.
They,
got it. My bad.
they gave their life and blood to straighten out the landfill issue. They know what the landfill is.
and they're also actively working on a track over
Right.
there. So they know
Furthermore,
where-
Cadmus
Put that further
Cadmus
down, yeah.
calls that
Just
out.
reverse it.
Calls it out. They had naming conventions. These are the exact
Okay.
naming conventions, the former cap landfill area.
losing control here.
Right.
Just-
Um,
Where are we? 7:21.
We're losing control here.
No, I
we're-
just feel like
lagging.
this is exactly what I was trying to avoid, but we're doing it anyway.
No.
It's just high level, it's high level.
It's a high level. Okay, and then we have numbers for AC generation and the amount of capacity that we do when possible. And
That's good.
And the next one, is it possible to put more meat into what we know DPW had said? So we said,
I have one email from the person in charge of stormwater management. And he has like 3 or 4 things in his email, none of which are showstoppers, but they do require further follow-up. One of the most significant is the concern for possible scouring in hard rain where it runs off these panels and then hits a specific spot and then starts scouring the earth at that point. Now, it's a basin and it is the low, kind of moving to the low point, but you don't want to move any of the dirt towards the low point.
But there also isn't a lot of square foot area
Yeah.
of this panels, because the panels are,
The single, right now they're designed by our
right,
by our tool, we just put them as singles, so they're not big, they're not gonna generate a huge amount. But, that could change, because we don't really know how to ultimately get shaken out, but the points are reasonable from the town, but it's so preliminary, because I'm not in a position to go to them and say, we're active, we're a go, let's go, let's do something more.
Right, yeah.
So,
I think it's an accurate statement.
yeah,
Thomas, we're positive.
I was wondering.
Well,
if
we
it
don't
could
want,
be-
I don't have enough.
we don't want to get into it.
No.
We don't, you know,
Yeah.
it's part of feasibility, I think.
yeah,
I
exactly.
think it just-
Furthermore, I don't think they want to spend any time answering these questions if there is no commitment to pursue the site.
I'm not asking for it, I just didn't know if we knew more, like, if we could be more positive and say.
Well,
Feasible. and
the
we'll do
only-
this.
the only- thing I can say is that the response I received had, had concerns, and as long as those can be addressed, it doesn't seem like there's, that's all. That's the only thing that's the only way I'd characterize that.
I did
I don't
not,
want to go into the detailed concerns.
I did not find any mention of the role of the battery. And I'm wondering if it's important to have that in this and everything else. we have
Not
to
being
do.
proposed on the campus. And so it's not important to get into, and the expectation would be that it's probably over next to the landfill and potentially in some of the flatter areas, like maybe near the compost site or someplace in that space. Could be where we would expect.
It's not on the table at this time, put it this way.
Yeah.
It's not something that we know about.
Can you say something about the role of batteries? If it's,
Not,
a lot of people seem to know that solar energy is not collected at night.
It's not really relevant to this discussion.
yeah,
The discussion is, we want to partner with you. And here's the situation.
here are the things we are anticipating that would be the way we would like to approach the campus. And batteries aren't really something that we were expecting to try to host on your campus. So why confuse it? Why, it doesn't
I guess
add.
the thing that's not totally clear to me, but I think is the case, is that without batteries somewhere, the economics don't work out too well.
Well, we have a proposal to have a battery somewhere.
No, I understand, and I'm saying the absence of any mention in any way, I'm suggesting we should say.
See,
a few
I
words.
just don't think they're gonna get to that kind of level in this meeting.
Yeah, that,
Okay,
This is more than what they would ever have wanted,
okay.
more detail. Oh, it's so much detail here.
and the battery, one of the things that comes through in this document is that the finances are not the concern of the district. The finances are the concern of the solar task force and the light plant. And the ratepayers will or will not benefit, okay? But those concerns are, we are saying in this document are not the concerns that we expect that the school system of the district needs to engage in. So to throw extra stuff about how the viability and how the battery benefits and all that, it's ancillary to the conversation about, can we host some of the panels on the campus? So, that's why.
So you got the notes?
I got a few. Yeah,
Good.
I do.
Are we good?
And they're not huge, but they're, these are changes that I think will make it a better document. So that's good.
You got Gavin's about the bullets?
I got Gavin about the bullets. I've got a bunch of,
Yeah.
the possibility of financial benefit, educational benefit, supporting our climate action plan from Eric, and
I could ask a question. Does this support the climate action plan? We could say that's the question. The answer is yes.
yes, yeah, it is. So
That's good. I like
it
that.
supports the climate action plan, and Wendy's concerned that we hedge our 25% energy.
Yes, the hedge is 25%. Yeah.
And also that we put a little clause in there that says we're also trying to get a plan pulled together. So, so I think that's,
Okay.
so what I'd like here is a motion that I will hand these over to Charlie, but I'd like a motion that Charlie can finish this off with the imprimatur of the committee, that we give him the right to finalize based on this input.
Make a motion that we authorize Charlie to take the input received today, revise the document and forward to the school committee as.
Second,
Okay, all in favor? Hands in the air.
Aye.
Right.
That's unanimous. Okay.
You want to give me the little sheet of
I
paper? and
will
I'll-
give you this, it's got my agenda on it, you'll get it.
Oh,
You're lucky I didn't put it in my regular journal, then I had to do my whole.
Well,
journal.
overall, I'm a lot more comfortable having this in place and in their hands with them proceeding with a meeting about this topic, given that we've never had any discussions with them.
Right,
So I think this has got to be considered to be helpful.
Yeah, that's.
yeah,
So,
I think it will be helpful to their, to them having a productive discussion. That's
which is all we're trying to
that's
do.
really all we're trying to do, so,
And no matter how it turns out, we want them to have a productive discussion. That's right.
Okay, so we managed to probably blow through we're pretty well along. Actually, we're not in terrible shape. No, we're not. We managed to 8 minutes. No, I got that great. So now I'd like to drop this from the share. And we can look at the work that Gavin did. Now, what Gavin did was he
Thank
took
you.
his work and he married it to Charlie's work. So we now have a complete document of what we think that's gonna look like. Where do I have that?
I can share.
Yeah, why don't you do that? It's easiest. So before we jump in here, I'm gonna just ask a question because this has been true in the past. Dave, are you able to stay? We have landfill next steps scheduled at 7:50, and we probably can keep to that. But would you be able to hang in there for that conversation? Because you've dropped off at around 8 in the past. And I just wanna, if I have to bump that up, we can move that around a little if we need to.
No, I'm fine tonight.
Move it around.
Okay, what's that?
Could we move it around?
Yeah.
Sense to
Yeah,
Well,
move
put
on to-
that, move that down, move this one down and bring the grip stuff and the stuff that involves Dave next.
Let's do that.
Okay, everybody okay? So everybody's okay with that? All right, hopefully we aren't upsetting the public by moving the times around a bit, but do our best here. So, the landfill, really, we're sort of wondering how your relationship with Kearsarge and the proposal and everything like that is playing out. And what our next steps are in learning about the mounting system, we got some very positive news from Laura at the tail end of last meeting, which was that there had been a meeting with Mass DEP and, Kearsarge had spent some consulting dollars to figure out mounting structures. Can you just give us an update on that, Dave?
Yep, they have made some good progress. We're actually meeting tomorrow morning with them to go over what they want to present to us, so it's moving along. They did have, success with the state, which was my concern, so that's great. So I'm gonna find out more tomorrow, and I can certainly send you an email with an update that can be discussed at the next meeting.
Do we have any sense of the uplift in cost for the racking and mounting?
I don't at this point. We know the approximate size. I did look at some of the racking stuff that they talked about, so I have a pretty good understanding, I think, of what they're gonna propose. But we don't have the costs and all that laid out from them yet.
I think what we were most interested in, I don't want to, dominate this discussion, but one of the things we're interested in was the uplift over $1.50.
Right.
If it's $1.50 for a ground mount, and that's the general number, is it $1.75?
Yeah,
What are we looking at here?
I have to go back through my notes, but I'm pretty sure that they gave us a percentage over the $1.50. It wasn't huge. So I don't think it's gonna be a showstopper, but once I get their information, I'll be able to share that with you guys.
My recollection, Dave, was that 10% was that you were using a 10% lift, which would be about 15 cents. And we had a quarter when we made it 25 cents to go from 150 to 175. So if it's more than 15% or 20%, then maybe our number is too low in the estimates we're using.
Well, at what point are we going to be comfortable that we can model this thing out and get a sense of how we're doing here?
Well, that's gonna take some consulting dollars with like an SDA or somebody to map it down onto the site and give us a real sense of how this is.
So I guess the second question is that one. Are we getting a shading analysis and a aspect analysis? We're going to be able to see, okay, what's the site going to do for us relative to regular ground mount?
Yeah, so that's all part of the analysis that Kearsarge would do, because they needed all that information in order to determine what the price would be on a PPA, should we go that way. So I don't know if they have that done yet or not, they may. But I think their first piece was, getting the green light from the state, which, appears to have happened. So that's the most important piece there for us. And that way, there is a potential project that you guys are gonna go to town meeting.
Well, what if we decide though that Kearsarge is going to stay at Kearsarge and we need to do this project ourselves? Then, we don't want to get boxed in and find that it's too late now to get SDA and to take a look at this thing.
No, I mean, we're gonna have to get SDA on board at some point anyway. And we can back into the number once we know what their cost per kilowatt hour is. So we'll have a pretty good idea what the total project cost would be, so that then, if we were to build something like this internally, we can figure out if the financial piece of it works or not for the return. And the one thing I would say is when you're looking at a return on the array, I wouldn't be factoring 30 years in, I'd be doing 20, because that's what most arrays are built around, is 20-year, and then you have to start doing replacement. So if you're looking at the financials and you're factoring 30 years, I don't think you're doing a good service there.
So Dave, can I ask a separate question? So we want to go, ideally we want to build this on our own, right? So we would want to engage SDA to get some more detailed designs. So at what point, I know we were waiting for Kearsarge to give us enough comfort to move forward, but at what point do we engage SDA? Didn't we say that CMLP could put some money up front to support this, knowing that we think it's feasible?
Well, we had held off on that only because we weren't sure if it was gonna be feasible, right? So
Right.
now we know it seems like it's a pretty good potential. Now we could, bring SDA on and have them get engaged to get us some more information that we need. But I think the key piece is, you know, I need to see what comes out of the meeting in the morning. The
Okay.
Kearsarge, and then we can determine, you know, is now the time to bring SDA in? And it very well could be. I actually think it's going to be, but.
Yeah.
So in the next few days, so to speak, we might have a sense of, to Wendy's point, whether we know enough now to proceed with SDA now.
I think we'll know enough after tomorrow's meeting, to be honest.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
That was what I was getting at too.
Yeah, yeah.
When do we cut off? When do we cut over to getting our own info so that we can have our info?
Right.
That was kind of my
And then-
sense on
Well,
that.
the info we get from Kearsarge is like very obscured by their PPA number.
Right,
you
right.
know.
But the feasibility is important. So then Dave, what kind of engagement with SDA, what kind of timeline does it take for them to, you know, I was thinking about CMS was a known project coming down the pipe for a while. But with this one, what kind of timeline do we have to work with SDA? Because we'd want design, some preliminary design,
Mhm.
validation, so that we could use the model, but we'd have to have enough information for town
Yeah,
meeting.
I think if we engage them, say in the next couple of weeks. We
Yeah,
should,
it's not a big deal.
have some information, well before town meeting,
Yeah,
which I,
right,
quite honestly, is necessary in my mind.
right. So, and that means we have to get sort of another agreement with them, right? So,
It's a PO.
yeah, but you know, Dave's departing all
I know,
those.
I know, but this isn't like a big
deal.
deal. This isn't like correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, this isn't like a huge procurement process.
No, we'd ask for an exemption and, to issue a PO.
Okay,
It's pretty straightforward.
okay.
Beautiful. That's a great report.
So now I guess we should talk about grid resiliency and whether we can get a proposal pulled together on that. I did what I could. I got zero. I got zero input, even though I asked everybody, hey, send me your thoughts about a project. So,
I was-
Oh, wait a second, I had sent mine 2 weeks ago.
oh,
Yeah, you
okay.
had mine.
okay. And so what I did was I took my own personal thoughts about it and I asked AI about it. And they came
Oh,
back, and he came back and gave me a nice structured. So about 90% of what you see, 80 to 90% of what you see there,
I think it's good.
was written by an intelligence beyond myself.
Huh.
Yeah, there you go. But I think it has good structure.
Yeah.
There's a couple pieces in there that there's a lot of fleshing out that needs to be done. I think in the backgrounder section, we really need to show what a progressive community Concord is and how solar uptake has been, you know, on the private
Yeah.
side as well as on, you know, our public efforts have been moving along kind of briskly. And that these will be thwarted when we start to hit the wall, which we expect that we will. And so the pieces that are in the proposal include some of the things that we are proposing, like, hey, it's smart grid technology. which
Pretty
we've got
much everything.
Pretty much everything, and we're proposing that for town meeting, but let's put it in with the grid proposal, maybe they'll fund it, and then the town will be off the hook for having to fund a smart grid.
I had one concern.
Yeah.
If you think of the draft as a cost proposal, which it is,
Mhm.
it has some obvious positive effect on benefits, i.e. we're able to do all these other things. I don't see the benefit side being described.
It stabilizes our grid, it helps us interact with the ISO New England more
Right,
reliably.
these are all
It-
good things.
Well, let's look at it this way. That is just a framework for what we're gonna, for working together. For what we can, for us to create a more full proposal. That is not a proposal. That's really an outline for a proposal
But
with
that's-
some descriptions of the sections.
And
Is
what I
that, do we have
saw,
that right, Gene?
It is, but between now and January 12th, it needs to be whatever we send in, because that's the deadline. And we don't have any more meetings between now and December and January
and
12th.
what I'm suggesting is if we could add even a short paragraph if I were on the committee that has to decide between all these other proposals, I'd say this one's weak on direct benefits on cost, and in fact, it does have implications on that. Should we say something?
Before we get that, can we take a step back here a little bit and ask Dave what Dave thinks? We need to have the light plant fully signed up for this.
It was signed by the light.
I know, it does have.
We need to have, the light plant needs to be the sponsor for this thing. All we are staff. And if the light plant is interested in a $20 million worth of free money over the next 5 to 10 years, then maybe this is worth doing. To do the things we already know we want to do.
Right.
But I think we need to hear from, I think the first thing is, do I have this right? First thing, we want to hear from Dave on this.
Yeah.
GRIP is a great opportunity for us, and I think we fit right into it.
And that's why I'm asking, instead of having a good proposal, that's well written. Is it competitive with all the other proposals? And this is the area that to me is not as strong as it might be. In other words,
Well,
there's all sorts of indirect but very important benefits. It makes many of the things we're doing possible rather than running out of capacity.
I'm really not sure what you're getting at.
It addresses all those.
What?
It
addresses
addresses
all
all
those.
those, I think.
It addresses
We
all
lay
those.
out, need some more.
We lay out the problem.
So this is, they're, communities are making proposals to get GRIP money.
Yeah, we've seen several
Right,
examples.
so the GRIP money is all about, innovation, it's all about doing what you can't afford to do, but it's in line with shaving the peak and all this other kind of good stuff. And grid resiliency, we're right in the sweet spot of this thing. What's not
And
to like
does it
about it?
make it possible to do other very good things? It's
So
an-
what
it's an
are
enabler.
you getting at here that we aren't doing that we should do?
Oh, being somewhat explicit as to what will facilitate the expansion in Concord. Because these are all prerequisites. So in terms of our 20 megawatts, is this essential, and the benefits flow from the fact that we do these things? I don't know, but I think so.
Let's hear what Dave has to say. 'cause
Yeah,
Really, this
yeah.
is
So,
our infrastructure.
yeah, so-
Dave-
Let's hear what Dave has to
Yeah.
say, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, no, I think, anytime you can get free money, it makes a lot of sense. And the concern that I have with this one is it's literally next Friday, it's due by.
Right.
And that's hard to do it at a high level. So I'd
Well,
be
we
interested
would
in
need to
it,
be
but I just,
invited in, we would need to get a nod from the GRIP committee or whatever that, this looks promising, flesh it out. And then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
So that was my question. It alluded to a project plan and dollars in it. Maybe
Well-
that's, yeah, I think, but for this submission, is it really just a summary as you draft? it?
Well,
Or- and
I'm
details to
concerned about whether or not, how much detail we need to get into to say, like, what's the scale? We may want to have it characterized by a general scale in terms of the dollars we would be looking for. But I don't know that you
Of course
need,
we should, yeah.
I don't know that we're gonna, we need to say, okay, we want to fix the substation so that it supports, the network, the net domain, whatever. We want to fix the distribution system so that we have a smart grid that can manage its flows and has a management level in it. And those things have dollar numbers associated, and we
Yeah.
should just plug a number for each of the.
And I guess my point is, without doing all those things, you probably can't meet our 20 megawatt. So therefore,
Right.
it's important to say that's a necessary facilitator, I think.
To meet our community goals,
Right.
Yeah,
because those are our community goals, and our community goals are aligned with our state and national goals.
Yeah.
So hopefully it stays in alignment. But the piece of the puzzle here that is in there is is a paragraph about demand management. And demand management is something that the light plant has engaged in over time in a one-off kind of approach. We have ETS thermal management. We have other kinds of hot water heater management. But what I think that we should put in the proposal is creating an infrastructure to allow that to happen.
Exactly.
But not necessarily say we intend to engage these businesses, or we intend to manage everybody's hot water heater.
I think we should keep demand management out of this. No, I don't think we want to get into that at all. I think what we want to do is talk about management of storage and the use of storage through this
And-
control
Also, the
system.
smart grid chunk of the proposal.
Yeah,
does.
I would not mess around with demand management.
But this is exactly, I agree with you. And
No, maybe Dave differs with me, but
what we need to say, I think, is that these are necessary prerequisites to our goal of meeting 20.
yeah, I think we want to stick to Dave's strategic plan.
Yeah.
The numbers that we have in the climate action plan. And the infrastructure that we need to do that. And lay that out in these 4 paragraphs or whatever. And
So
that's
you
what
would take demand management off.
I would take demand management out of there.
Because the way it's characterized in the thing today is just getting an appropriate, infrastructure platform to allow that to exist in the future. Not necessarily saying we're.
Well, you'll
absolutely-
have it, because it'll be there, but I'm not
Well,
sure.
Well, I'm not sure that you do automatically have it.
No.
It'll just be there. You're not gonna get it unless you implement
It seems like get ahead of our skis a little bit here.
it to do demand management.
No, as I'm reading it. It seems reasonable. But you're not getting into the nitty-gritty
No,
details.
it's a very general,
Yeah,
high level
very general.
proposal.
Well, it's okay, I mean, to have infrastructure to do things that
Like
you
we
can't
have-
do today.
Like today, we have a fiber network, which means we have infrastructure to do the things we want to do, like smart meters, So what's the infrastructure piece that we would need to work through to get modern demand management? And have people who have smart refrigerators and smart air conditioners and, smart
Maybe we
devices.
maybe we don't want to do that.
Okay, maybe we don't.
Well, maybe we
Because
don't.
Because
And I
we
think
failed
there's
at
a
it in the
good-
past.
No, there's a good reason to not do that, but, so,
Okay, if we don't want to do it. I'll
but Dave, what
take
is your
it out.
take on that?
Take it
Yes,
out.
So I think the big piece that I want to add is, I have a meeting tomorrow morning, with Energy New England about this exact topic. So I'm gonna learn a little bit more from them. They have some examples of what was originally submitted. So we'll be able to hopefully get from point A to point B and figure out what we can do.
When you say exact topic, you talk about demand management, you talk about grip
Yes.
itself,
RIP concept.
grip.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you can throw this thing over the wall to them and say, this is what this committee has, just sort of drawn up as a rough cut.
But we want our own grip proposal, right? We don't want.
Are you
somebody else's.
proposing that we're sort of married into a Energy New England larger scale proposal and we would just sort of benefit
No,
downstream?
No, not necessarily. It could be our own. I think that's what part of the meeting tomorrow is about. So more to come, but,
Other small
So-
municipalities have won previous awards, so we're at a size that fits the existing pattern.
Well, personally, I would prefer to do our own rather than go through somebody else, be part of somebody else's thing, so.
And other municipalities have succeeded in doing exactly that.
See, something that Energy New England could potentially, put out is we want to create a framework that lifts all of our munis up in some way. We want to have a battery purchase program. We want to have a,
Massive
battery purchase program. We want to do this, that, or the next
That's right,
thing
that's right.
that
that's right.
benefits all the munis. So give us big dough
Yep.
so that we can create
That's right,
some
yeah.
framework that everybody who's a member of our association benefits from, which is a bigger and a different kind of proposal than, hi, we're a single light plant, and we have our own local infrastructure issues
And
that
there
also
were-
need to be solved.
In the material we got, there were at least 4 examples of other communities doing exactly that successfully.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Dave, are you talking about Ian's educating you? Are you considering, would you consider something like this, or are you looking at something in collaboration with E&E?
No, I think we're open to doing it in, internally ourselves.
Yeah.
Or partnering up. We've done things in both ways. So I think, I want to learn a little bit tomorrow so that, we can really look at it. And figure out what direction we want to go and if we can actually get this thing done in time.
We're gonna need some help
So,
between now and the 12th.
I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Committee, we're not meeting, right? So
Right.
is this something being, you can work directly with Dave?
I will be
About
happy to
just
work,
do that?
I'll be happy to work with you or Laura or anybody at the light plant to pull together something between now and the 12th. So that, because at least here as a committee, I think we're enthusiastic about the possibility of funding some of these things. We're going to town meeting to ask the town to fund
I
them.
know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So why don't we get a partnership with the federal government to get the things done that we're already proposing to do with town money and light plant bond funding? So this is completely aligned with our warrant article.
Right.
Multiple pieces of this are aligned with our storage, smart grid technology. Those are pieces of our proposal. So why don't
They
we,
might want to add something to it.
Well, this could be to
but it also
put it a
throws in the
different,
substation stuff.
put a different
Yeah.
spin on it. This could be the most significant thing we do as a committee.
We could,
This is way more significant than,
if we could pull this off,
yeah, we could pull it off. That's right.
So,
So Dave, you're gonna learn more tomorrow. Does it make sense, Dave, for you to touch base with Dean and figure out how we could move this forward and how
Yeah.
this can.
Sure.
and yes,
Okay.
let's,
Yeah,
let's,
do that.
um,
We don't need a motion from us.
yeah,
We're-
that's
No, we're
fine.
good,
We'll
we're good.
coordinate it. And I'll work with you, Dave. Yeah, I'll work with anybody you wanna throw at this. But I'm committed to getting something over the wall between now and the 12th. We gotta get it over the wall by the 12th.
Good.
So,
And Dean, I'll volunteer to help you on.
All right,
whatever if you-
great,
if you
fine.
need Backup time.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
We'll, anything we can do to get this, because it's deadline's looming.
Do we want to hear from Dave on the specific demand response point?
Oh, yeah, that,
No,
no, thanks, Charlie.
The reason I think it should be kept in, I think we should keep all the tools on the
all
table,
right.
get money. for
I-
all of it.
I think a little bit of a pain here on this point, but
Just think about it, like EVs and everything, you don't want them all charging at 4 or 5 PM when everyone's home. You want to be able to manage that.
I'm sure that Dave's got that in his
Yeah.
list.
Yeah.
Sure, so
Okay.
I think we should keep it to.
well, when I think of demand management, I think of people controlling your refrigerator.
That's right.
Yeah.
That they
Controlling your
turn
hot
off,
water heater,
Yeah.
controlling your air conditioner and so forth.
they turn off your ability to charge your car at a certain
Right.
time.
Yeah.
They're taking active measures of this.
Right.
As opposed to, oh, I set my car to not charge at the
That's
time, and I've taken a picture of
That,
my
that,
dad.
that use is for storage. I'm all in for storage. I'm totally in.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so now I think we can come back around to. To the report. So, yeah, so let's
Just gotta share it.
Yeah, I'll start.
thank Gavin to do that. Here we are. Okay.
Yeah, so this was just a very early draft of the report. Charlie had done section 2 sort of it.
Yeah.
And we had reviewed that earlier, so this is just the introduction. I added some, I don't know if we reviewed this together, but I just added some backgrounds and macro trends. I think,
I think those are helpful.
Yeah.
yeah,
You
All
know,
good.
It's,
Yep.
they're very helpful to have in there, because a community member who picks this up or another committee that
Yeah.
takes this
Yeah.
up, is gonna, they're gonna say, okay, you guys are doing your homework, and this is why you're doing what you're doing. And I think those are important things.
okay, awesome.
Yeah,
So the first section is what I tackled, and it's pretty rough because I wanted to talk with everyone about what we want to do as a final product. But I basically broken up into 3 different sections almost. So the first being Well, to back up a second, I think it could be helpful if this is site identification, if we do a meeting where we have some details on all of the sites and we can talk through what we think for sort of the next step, because we've already identified our first 3 early projects in this short-term section that check the boxes of being on the good circuit and need little battery backup, more or less, compared to some other ones in the
Yeah.
future. So then there would be a next section on more medium-term sites. There's one mistake in here, that Alcott rooftop isn't that. And we already did the CCHS rooftop, so it's a bit outdated. But basically, these would be ones that are still on the good bus bar that don't need that much battery, but there aren't many good sites
So,
there.
so just to clarify
Yeah.
on that, if we get all 3 of the sites that we're anticipating, we are more or less maxing out the good bus bar. The good bus bar is becoming just as bad as the other bus bar.
Exactly.
But,
So,
you know, if Dave and the strategy goes through in Q2 of 25, the metering domain will be in. So you got 5 more members. So like this medium term, we need to evaluate. Should it be medium or should we just prioritize
Yeah,
everything,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Prioritize what, the sites?
All the sites, right, from
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what I think is,
from a preferability perspective.
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
prioritize.
Just the criteria, right?
Yeah,
Of-
yes,
On how we
right.
want to prioritize, we have to, maybe that's the
Yeah.
section here too.
So-
But-
I think
Yeah.
my idea was that, yeah, this is early and just includes all the potential sites in
Yeah,
town.
yeah, absolutely.
And then we would go through and have a meeting where we can go through live, where I prepared like more information on each site. It's almost like a slide on each site.
Yeah.
And then we can sort of think about what we're prioritizing and build from there. That makes sense.
So
So,
would we have them in here even though they're not really
I think so.
financially feasible?
I mean, the town asked us to look at all the sites, so
Yeah.
I think maybe we don't spend a lot
Well,
of time on something, but.
the town asked us what we told them to ask us.
I don't think it's-
So I think we can do the intelligent thing here.
Yeah.
I think in keeping with the notion that we're trying to do what's financially feasible. I would think we wouldn't want to spend a lot of time on a bunch of small rooftops, for example.
Well, that's part of the
Oh, yeah.
criteria question.
Yeah.
How big of a rooftop? You might just knock them right off and say, we're not doing any rooftops bigger than blah. But that's the criteria
So-
question, yeah.
So how do we get to the criteria question then?
Maybe Dan wants to keep going through this.
How do we get to
Come
that?
back to that.
I think I think at a future meeting, we just have like a hour where we go through where I can prepare basically from the Excel sheet and from this combining into a PowerPoint, so we can look at its site. And if it's a small rooftop, we can immediately say, no, we don't like it.
well,
For the report, it can be very limited information on ones that we've taken out. It can just mention it. And I think for the ones that we prioritize, we can have like more detail on each one sort of section.
so the question that Wendy brings up then is, even if we're going through it and you've prepared some presentation per site, we see what it is, we see, the orientation is, whatever. It would be helpful for us to not just make a seat of the pants kind of, hey, we all have a group, we have a group think on this, that one's a good one, that one's not so good. If there were, statistically measurable criteria.
Yeah.
The orientation of the azimuth is X, the number of panels is Y, the cost to do it per kilowatt is X, some.
Yeah.
That's what we
criteria,
need. That's what we need.
Some kind of criteria that say this becomes less viable, this becomes more productive, things that make a site more advantageous among a variety of parameters than another site. A site could be small, but on the ground and cheap and oriented nicely.
Yeah.
And another one could be a large, array on a big roof somewhere. But it's pointing in the wrong direction and it's expensive to get guys up on the roof. So this one, even though smaller, is a better option for us. So I don't know how we create that list, but we probably should have a small
using-
list
yeah.
of criteria for evaluating.
Well, using the tools,
Yeah,
I mean, do we need to go through sites to figure out what our criteria are? I don't think we do.
No, I think we have a separate.
So we should have a separate discussion about, do we want to, for example, do we want to do rooftops that are less than 500 KW? Just a question. We want to do them that We want to do them that are 200 kW. I think the rooftop question is a tough one. Is that they're expensive to begin with, and they get more expensive when you get into smaller ones.
And by the
And
way,
I think Dave could-
contingent on-
Dave's still there, he kind of comment on that in seconds. So the same goes with, you know, with canopies, and I just don't see us doing canopies.
So I think
They're
it's
just
a
too expensive.
question- I mean, we're charged with creating a report, and part of our education of the community is, we may not want to recommend certain sites because of the cost, and that's the opportunity.
Well, you can put those in another category, but I think to Dean's point, I think what we need to do is we need to profile the ones that we like, and we need to, and the profiling has to include what they can produce.
Yeah, no, I'm not
When-
disagreeing with you, I'm not.
They have to
I
be,
think we can-
we have to have a capacity number.
Right.
I think what would be most helpful is, for me, when doing this work, is to talk tonight about what we think the criteria are.
Okay.
If everyone's ready to do that, we can do that.
There was one thing we didn't discuss explicitly on the federal proposal. We've talked about the limitations of our present buses. Bus bars. Do we have the existing bus bars, will they under any configuration support 20 megawatts? If not, should we be looking into bus bar expansion, construction as a federal prerequisite?
I have kind of a funny way, Dean probably would respond to this too, I have a funny way to respond to that. I think we need to profile the system. And that's part of what we want to do through this SCADA, not SCADA, but this control and monitoring contract, microgrid
Yeah.
business.
So
We
that
want
would
to,
include,
we want to profile the entire grid in terms of loads.
but who's gonna pay for extra bus? And
Well,
do
well,
need
we
to
first have,
provide
you
that?
first have to figure
What
out
we
what your
need.
issues are.
Yeah.
And you have to take your profile and you have to bang that up against what you're trying to do. We're trying to
Right,
go to 20, we're trying to go to 100, we're trying to go to 50, whatever we're trying to do. We have to find the hot spots in the system. And decide whether, you know, if and whether we want to do something about them.
so you're saying we don't have to put it in this proposal, it can come later?
No, what needs to go in this proposal is the
Yeah.
load analysis, the load study.
Yeah.
So we have to do a load study that goes through the whole grid.
Which may, for instance, come up with the fact that our bars won't support. the
Well,
federal
let-
Well,
Yeah, so we're talking across purposes, and Dave can correct us all here, because I'm gonna say something that's probably also wrong, but. The question is not whether we have enough room for the energy flowing on the bus bar. The question is, it's imbalance. There's too much produced, and there's not enough people who want to turn on their air conditioner at any given time, because the sun is shining and it's a nice, cool fall day. So we're at an imbalance. So it's not like we need more bus bar.
Well, it
What
could,
we
it could
need-
be sizing.
Two issues.
It could be, there could
We
be a
need
lot of
some
sizing.
place for that
questions.
energy to go.
Right.
That's what we need. We need that someplace for that excess energy that nobody needs at that moment to go so that we can balance our loads. So, you know, this idea, well, we need to build a new bus bar, seems like that's, I'm not sure that that's the
We're in
right.
batteries.
Well, we may need to build a lot of new things, but we don't know what those things are, and we don't know how big they need to be.
Right.
Because we haven't defined what our goals are, and we haven't defined where we're starting from.
Yeah.
We don't know where we're starting from. We have a great system, but we haven't
We don't have solid data on every.
Characterized
aspect.
it.
We might
So,
go through all these sites. And
I don't want us to get off the rails.
Yeah.
Phil brought up a
Yeah.
conversation that's really not part of where we were. We were working on how do we characterize sites? And how do we prioritize sites and what criteria?
I think we answered the question though pretty good.
We did, but we went on a side trip for a little while there.
So I think you're right that we need to, Gavin, I think you're right. We need to have the discussion about criteria irrespective of the sites. And then we need to kind of put the two together, right? And do the homework on them. And I think to Wendy's point, I think we need to have all the sites. So we need to have all the little ones, but we don't want to profile them. We don't want to
Yeah,
put the
we
work
do.
into them because they're obviously not a fit.
But we
Yeah.
can go through the criteria and
We
say.
can go through the criteria.
So I do have a big question, and that is that we're working towards the climate action goal of 20 megawatts. And as we've looked around the community and the kinds of sites that we can even remotely see as being possible, getting to 20 megawatts is not that
Might be
easy to
possible.
do. It might not even be possible.
On town-owned land.
On town-owned land, which.
Well, I think most of us have concluded that it might not be possible.
So,
And
so
that's.
do we, what do we,
Our report.
what is our report?
charter-
What's our
Our
report?
charter gives us the purview.
Oh,
to
I think
say,
there's a lot to
this
say
is
in our
20
report.
megawatts. No, but.
Yeah, we started in 2010 with 25.
Right.
We dialed it back in 2011, I think, to 20, where it's been for a long time. And now, even with improved technology, looking to try to find room to put 20.
Well. Board of Health
well,
prohibited it. Like, you
hold
could
on.
probably tilt the canopy, right?
Hold on, you know, what we want to do, we want to go for the fruit that we can find that's reasonable, that's on town-owned land, and we don't want to depress it into areas that it shouldn't be.
Okay.
However, at the same time, we want to create the infrastructure that would enable Concord Academy and the hospital and, you know, all of these entities
They're
Big red.
to do
non-town
their
owned.
own and do their own and do it at their expense in a way that's you know, financially viable. Which may mean that our job is more in the area of monitoring and control and storage than it is in the area of having tons and tons of solar that we own. Would kind of be my gut feel
Right,
for
so,
this.
but you're redefining the goal of it, saying instead of landing solar on town-owned land proper, the part of this purview might be to be able to accommodate more solar
Right.
through the town's resources, not necessarily land, might be batteries, might be infrastructure, to enable the town to increase its solar
Color
capacity
footprint.
everywhere,
Yeah.
regardless of whether it's on town land or.
That's right.
And can we make it attractive for large businesses to go solar in some way integrated with what we're talking about?
Well, right now, there's disincentive because they're required to put in a battery over a certain kilowatt capacity of their solar. They have to then put more expense into the battery. So if the town were, or the light plant were to be making the grid resilient and capable of absorbing the energy, then that takes the load, the load off of the
Of
private individual who might want to generate it.
So the question really I'm raising is, can we aim to make it attractive for the right businesses to sign on terms that meet our goal?
Yes, that is,
That's,
yes.
it's a little actually, a bit about section 2, where about the feasibility and the requirements of the system itself. Sort of, I think that's more section 2.
That is.
This is, this section,
Yeah, this is about the individual sites and how do we choose them and how do we order them?
but they're
And how
into,
to make it attractive
well,
to
Yeah.
a segment that otherwise will not be attractive?
well,
That's
the-
section 2 stuff.
Well, in section 1, Gavin has correctly identified that there's a whole bunch of potential private locations
Yeah,
where
I
the
was-
stuff can go.
I was thinking sort of 3 subsections of section 1. So
Yeah.
first is town-owned land opportunities.
Right.
Second is public-private
Partnership.
cooperation
Yeah.
partnership.
Right.
And the third being where a battery siting opportunity is or
Yeah.
a battery.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to go about it. And the battery one might be the most important one out of
I
that,
can make it up.
but we can figure that out.
So we have some time here. What time is it? Like eight, 5, 10?
10, yeah.
10. We have some time. So let's think about what would be criteria that we would consider.
I put up on the screen here, just, this was my initial spreadsheet, how I did the criteria,
Okay,
very basic. And then we can add on to that if we want.
Make that bigger.
Yeah, so I'm trying to, I'll start left to right. So site name, that's pretty obvious. I did approximate square footage because that was pretty easy to do from overhead satellite. I think we should keep that.
Yeah.
Okay, then I did my own power conversion. I think we can update that with some of the new numbers that we do.
Yep.
But I think power conversion is
So
important.
these are facts that you want to collect by site.
Yeah, these are the criteria. We're gonna try to order them by.
So power
Oh.
conversion is your generation, annual generation, is that what that is?
Yeah,
Based on
And-
clear
and-
sight.
yeah, and also it's by type. So like these top ones I'm showing here in blue are rooftop. but later on down there's the parking.
And
canopy.
have you been able to check the rooftops for is that number?
That
Conditioned
number's-
by aspect, is it,
No, it's just by square footage and multiple.
well, I think
This
if we're
is
gonna
like a
have,
nameplate, this is a nameplate number.
Yeah,
It's
it's very
not, it's not an annual production number.
Yeah.
It's just like this is what.
oh, that's,
square
I
footage of
can't
solar
read the
panels.
thing from here. It's a capacity number.
It's capacity number.
Capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So capacity, we don't know what the capacity will produce
No.
because we haven't got that far.
Yeah, I think these numbers aren't
They're
accurate, but
relatives.
I think.
Yeah.
Getting that criteria is important.
They're
So-
rough, they're
Yeah.
thumbnail numbers, which is fine.
So it's
It
the best
shows
way to
that
do
the
it.
best ones are not insignificant.
Well, so for the big one, if you're getting to criteria though, for the big sites, the sites that we think are attractive, we have to get generation.
What's the
Well,
best way to do that,
yeah.
do you think? Getting a number on that
Well,
would be some of the modeling we
You,
did.
you'd need to have some level, well, what's the orientation that this would be deployed at?
Yeah.
And
I have some
what's the shading?
Does doesn't Mass Commonwealth have those tools?
Yeah, I think so.
I know the commercial guys have it because it turned out that our house had to be moved 90 degrees, which is why we ended up with an outdoor unit.
Okay,
But didn't you already distribute to us
There
a
was a
tool
state,
that
yeah,
the
state
state tool
database,
that had
the state tool identified land
Land.
part by at a parcel level.
Right.
And it had a grid criteria that said, is this, is this got a high potential for agriculture? Does it have wetlands impacts? Does it have this? Does it have that? There's a whole bunch of criteria, but they aren't down at the detailed level of what's the azimuth that this would be at.
well, we don't need the azimuth.
You know.
We don't need that. We care about how much the site's gonna produce.
Well, that.
So,
Well,
directly
wait,
depends
hold
on
on a
which
second,
direction
hold
you
on
go.
a second. We
Direction.
don't need a column that says azimuth. What we need to know is what we can generate, and these solar companies, I'm looking at your site, yeah, you can produce, this is what you can produce, I'm looking at the shading, boom, done.
Right,
That's what we need.
we are not those solar.
And the
Well,
orientation.
we need to have that, though, we need to have that capability if we're gonna do this.
So to do that,
Yeah, that's.
you need to be able to model the orientation of the panels and where they'll be and how much shade they would have on
I have some basic notes on. if
With a
there's some
tool.
Shading.
with a tool.
itself.
The tool would, you'd say, I have this plot of land like we had the plot of land at the basin.
Right.
And you
Yeah.
say, I wanna orient these panels 180 degrees south. So that means that the rows are gonna look like these weird diagonal hatch pattern across the basin, but they're all pointing due
But when you
south.
call a solar company, residential solar company, for example, they can look at it and they say, okay, this is boom, boom. This is
Yeah,
what
in
it'll do,
24 hours, you'll get the numbers.
Yeah.
or in 2 minutes.
It's
They-
not
they-
hard.
We can look around on how to do that. I'm not sure right now on how to do
So
that
all,
personally.
that's, we have to become somewhat adroit at these kinds of calculations, which, that's what we have to be.
There are computer programs, obviously, that do that. Whether we can
Yeah.
buy access to one, or whether they're entirely proprietary, I don't know.
How many big rooftops are there?
I mean.
We could get somebody to do this for us.
Scale of the problem.
Right.
Gavin has identified somewhere around 30 places to put solar, about 30?
Yeah.
About 30. It's not 100 sites, it's not
There's a-
1,000 sites.
There's a
Probably
lot,
only 5 sites, probably only 5 rooftops that we've got
We care
available to
about.
us.
Yeah, no, exactly.
yeah, there's a lot of great, I can't say it's too small, but there's a lot of great ground mounted opportunities that are pretty.
There are.
cool still.
Yeah,
Some of those are gonna need outreach.
yeah, oh, they absolutely gonna
Right,
need outreach.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
we have
So I think like, for example, we should prioritize
Well,
the criteria
tree,
ground
yeah.
mounted,
Right.
ground mounted.
You know, one of our.
These don't touch any trees, these ones.
Yeah, but I
That's the way,
guess my
yeah, but that's
question
where
though
your
is we
criteria
need
is.
to,
Yeah, no
part of the
trees.
criteria.
You-
Well, no trees, minimum.
No, but you made
Yeah.
that as one of the criteria in the
Yeah.
first round we went through this.
Yeah.
was,
Right.
This is heavily forced. Well, forget that one, right?
Right.
That would be your baseline criteria.
Yeah.
So we're kind of muddy here, we're just trying to,
But
we have to structure this somehow so we can.
that was helpful. I have some good feedback. The only problem is the power conversion one on the numbers, how to get those.
How to get there.
But
You said ground mounted. You're excluding rooftop?
No.
About that money,
Type.
right? Just, yeah.
and parking canopy,
Are the ground mounts on this list here?
yes. they're not organized that well.
Where are they? Oh, I see, they're mixed in.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, so we should separate them out into those categories.
yeah, the bottom ones are ground. Yeah, so
I guess my only comment was, we need to get down quickly to the ones that need to be researched to have some sort of, something definitive that you can say about them.
Right.
So,
Because we can't go to this report and just say, yeah, it's got this
No.
amount of square feet.
Yeah, like
If you look at
And
the,
this is the asthma.
if you
Nobody's
look at
gonna
the
care.
work that Laura did, the work that Laura did identified individual sites and had a paragraph, it had an overhead view from
Right.
Google Earth. It had a paragraph description of the site, the potential, the issues, and went on to the next site. It's not, her model is not a bad model.
No.
So she had generation.
She did not have generation.
Okay.
I don't think. She just had, this is a site that has, you know,
Criteria.
these criteria.
Yeah.
It's open, but the problems with this are that the wastewater treatment plant might need it in the future, and so therefore it's a question mark whether it can ever be used and blah, blah, blah. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of editorial in there.
Okay.
But there probably weren't a lot of hard numbers about what its production
Right.
potential is. I think that we would be well served if we can figure out, we can go through and create production potential out of some of these sites, and then add that to the report.
from Dave, we have.
Dave,
Yeah, I gotta take off. I just want to let you guys know.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Dave, it has been a pleasure working with you. If we don't see you again, I know I'm gonna be having an email exchange or two with you over the next few days, but it's been a pleasure. And thank you for your service to the town. And we'll see you later.
Thank you for helping us with this.
And
Thanks,
thank
Dave.
you for this.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
Yep,
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
bye.
So I just wanted to share quickly before we wrap up this section as well. So I just put this basic PowerPoint together that went over what we just talked about, the different sections, the different options. So like we talked about, I think the storage opportunities one I just wanted to bring up before we end here. I think we want to look at the opportunity for large scale battery storage, most likely the energy storage. And I can include that in my section if we see it's fit. And I think the one I want to call out is the bus depot I think is a really great option. We should include doing electric school buses or a battery pack there as well. Because it's right near the substation, and it's right in between the solar over there.
It's right near Grace, yeah, right there.
So, yeah, I think that should be a big part of
I
it.
mean, that could potentially be where we put the battery pack. That's part of our proposal. Yes, on this.
So.
Yeah. And then, sorry, I was gonna call out as well, the virtual power plants idea.
What is that?
Yeah, so I think that could be an important key for the town if we did get all the features that we talked about in the grid report and everything.
Yeah.
Is if everyone has an EV at home, if people have batteries in their home, CMLP could tap into that and not have to buy its own battery packs at exorbitant rates, but use the ratepayers
Yeah.
with a subsidy for them to be able to use
Huh.
that.
Yeah.
And that because otherwise it's sort of latent battery potential that's just out there on the grid that we're not using. So I think that's a great idea to include. And so I think depending on what everyone else says here, I think these are important things to include in like a little subsection of section 1.
I do think that we have to collaborate with the light plan on that, the distributed thing, the virtual power plant has
Yeah.
come up several times, and, you know, I know there's been a not yet kind of thing. come
Yeah,
up.
We'll have that in our group thing. That's a kind of
Yeah.
group opportunity.
Yeah. So the virtual power plant piece is something that would be really almost an ideal opportunity for Energy New England to manage.
Yeah.
To create an infrastructure and a platform for a muni to subscribe and say, we want you to worry about when to draw down. We want you to worry about letting us know how much you drew down from customers so that we can give them a credit on their bill. You know, however it would work, E&E would be the operator of the virtual power plant system.
Maybe,
Yeah, I say maybe.
yeah.
MWEC is already doing it for their membership. For their munis, the munis who are members of a different consortium, MWEC, have this availability today because MWEC is managing a virtual power plant program
Yeah.
for their munis.
And do we,
That's
I
it,
think
so
so.
we're-
Yeah, MMWEC.
Yeah.
MMWEC is a consortium of munis We are a member of a different consortium called Energy New England,
Mhm.
but there's a consortium of Massachusetts municipals called MMWEC, and they manage virtual power plants.
What, if
They're-
anything, do we know about the planned growth of the number of electric school buses?
Well, that's mostly a funding issue. That's, the town and the schools are eager to electrify the bus system. But the cost of an electric bus is 3 times what it costs to buy a diesel bus, and so there's just.
But I will say they've been dragging their feet a little bit when the rebate program comes up through the EPA. There hasn't been anyone who's taken charge of that in the school department.
Eric knows a
To be
little
able
bit
to
about
apply.
this.
Yeah, Eric knows about it.
Eric's leading us on this one.
Yeah, so I think including it in our report would be vital to pushing the school district to doing that.
Okay,
Can we also say that, I think, you know, we've chatted about this a little bit, that it might be E&E, it might be another third party.
It could be.
That does our management. For example, Eaton
good.
provides software and they do management.
Like this
STEM,
crack.
STEM provides software and they do management. Companies provide batteries, they provide the entire infrastructure for your entire system. And they are the ones that do the managing, they do the battery dispatching, they do all this stuff. So it's not like,
Yeah,
like E&E is the only people that know how to do this stuff.
When Green Mountain Power decided to offer their original virtual power plant option, they outsourced that to Tesla. Tesla was gonna manage, yes, yes.
So I think it's very important
Yes.
that we consider the various business models that
Yeah.
are really predominant in this environment, and those are what I just kind of mentioned.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. So yeah, I'll include that then.
Yeah.
And by the way, on the energy storage, I think we've also kind of concluded that batteries can go anywhere. They can be centralized in one location, they can be distributed, but they don't need to be associated with an
They don't
individual.
have to be at the site.
They don't have to be associated technically with any specific solar site.
And to Laura's point, larger is better.
Yeah.
Do what?
Larger
The
is better.
larger is better and they want.
Oh, yeah.
Great, so,
This is what Laura was saying about
yeah.
bigger.
The last time, bigger's better.
I think we've kind of.
I'm good.
exhausted
I have
our-
my marching orders
our
here on
time.
criteria.
Um,
We'll just have to talk about that power conversion, maybe offline to figure out how to do that.
yeah. We don't really have any new business tonight, but if there's anyone who has a public comment, we can open the lines for public comment. Mary
Anyone
Hartman.
likes that? Who else?
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Dean. A fascinating meeting. I always learn a lot when I listen to all of you speak. When you're putting together your criteria for the sites, you're talking, what I hear you're looking at is what's the capacity and what is the cost benefit. But one of the things you might want to consider are other obstacles that you're going to run into at each site. Because if you remember, the charge that the select board wrote asked you to look at that as well. And these obstacles could be anything from you're going to have to remove trees that people aren't going to be happy about, or for example, White Pond. I know the people at White Pond are interested in that land for a potential septic system to keep the pond clean. So there's a lot of different obstacles that you might want to think about when you're looking at potential sites and not just the technical aspects. And that's what we tried to articulate in the charge that we wrote, because you know the CMLP has been looking at this for years. They've come out with different lists, and yet they always run into obstacles. And what we heard is that's what stops it, not technical aspects. So I just wanted to remind you of that. The other thing is that if you find out that you can't meet the 20 megawatts on municipal land, which I think, don't feel like, oh, that was your charge. You have to figure out a plan to hit 20 megawatts. You're already, I'm learning tonight, which I find really promising, is this GRIP idea might be the way to do it. And you don't have to get sites, you don't have to overcome a various assortment of obstacles. So I hope that's encouraging. I think you guys are just doing great work. I love listening to you, but I wanted to remind you of that. That's what came up for me when I was listening to your conversation. So thanks for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy.
Hi, everyone. Tracy Morano, 39 Partridge Lane, Chair of the Regional School Committee, but speaking on behalf of myself. I just wanted to clarify the electric buses. We actually tried to apply for a grant this summer, and we were turned down because we are not a priority district. So every grant opportunity that comes up, we go for that. But unfortunately, we are never going to be a priority district. So we tried to partner with other districts through Anderson Bus Company, and they didn't have enough buses to actually pursue the grant. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't read your name, I'm sorry. Hold on. Who's this down?
Could you,
here?
could you introduce yourself?
Lois?
Suarez?
Lois Suarez, 34 Everett Street, apartment 10B. I noticed on your listing of the Concord Housing Authority office, you have it listed as 115 Stowe Street. That was the old address. The incorrect new address is 34 Everett Street. 115 Stowe Street is the address of the Peter Bulkley building, which is probably, if you're just looking at one building in the complex here for roof, that's probably the building that you're looking at. About 10 years ago, the residents here approached the Housing Authority on putting solar on our roofs. At the time, it was Department of Housing and Community Development, and the answer was a big no. Currently, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, which is kind of the HCD, is transferred to that, and there is a position on the Governor's Council now for that. It seems to be more amenable to that type of solar installations. And that was just, I came actually, I came just for myself, but I'm a member of the Pollinator Health Advisory Committee, and I came tonight just to listen, to look at the possibilities, because there is a lot of possibilities of looking at the biodiversity of what's happening on solar sites in terms of using native plants to attract native pollinators. And it just so happens that at the beginning of the meeting, I said, you started talking about some of the people at the school. On Saturday, pollinators will be at Verrill Farm, the pollinator with the library, and Priscilla Guiney and a green team to do what they call a winter sow, which it doesn't sound related, but it's about planting native plants because they need a cold period, and it gets them started in a very inexpensive way. And one of the things that I keep hearing from you, and I think Mary Hartman is sort of saying this too, is you need a buy-in from not just, there's all the technical stuff you're talking about, but you need a buy-in from the community. And you have to look at that. I mean, in the bigger picture, you might need those facts right away, but we're the pollinator crew will be looking at places to put more pollinator friendly plantings and to attract the right critters and whatever, the whole piece. So I think start to think, and that might be like another step, but who can you reach out to buy in with?
Thank you.
In the community, because you need community support for this.
It's like agrivoltaics as well.
Right.
And thanks. Your work is amazing.
Thank you.
Can we make a quick comment? So,
Sure.
so there are incentives from the Commonwealth to develop pollinator gardens
Right,
in conjunction with arrays that are developed on land. You can
right.
actually get money for that, so
Well,
that might be an interesting
There's not a
strategy.
whole lot of money, and some of it is a little bit waffly, let's put it that way at this point. There are some newer proposals that would sound a little more stable from what and I'm not an expert on this by any means. This is a newer venture to look into the biodiversity part of the solar arrays and biodiversity. And it's the pollinators, it's also the wildlife, and everything like from turtles to birds. and how to include them. And the other piece is that in terms of sometimes that doesn't seem like that's going to be a big thing here, but when you have to clear trees or shade trees, there's also, maybe you're not going to have the trees, but maybe you can have shrubs that are compatible in the cleared area around and also between the arrays that are flowering and can attract the wildlife, being everything from the pollen and nectar to habitat. So there's like lots of layers there.
Great.
Thank you.
And we'll be discussing that. So if anyone wants to stop by our meeting, and I'm not sure, I think we usually meet the second Tuesday, but we may be different this month because of some conflicts. But
Thank you.
please feel free to drop in.
Wilson Kerr.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wilson Kerr, 20 Damon Street. So first of all, this work just seems incredible. I have solar on my roof, and it is the greatest thing to be able to have the sun beating down on my roof as it does all summer, and not only not pay very much in electricity, there's connection costs and other things, but also put a little money in my family's pocket by way of taking advantage of this incredible free resource that just beats down on us all day. So I'm a huge fan of solar, but I wanted to give an analogy regarding how I got my solar as a way of perhaps providing some constructive criticism regarding the way that this process has been gone about. I understand that the first half of this meeting, there was so much energy. It was almost a hard meeting to get through regarding the school committee and this sort of feeling of obstructionism. And also we had Dave from the, Concord Light. And I'll use my example to illustrate my point, I hope. When I thought about getting solar on my roof, I researched the companies that could do it. And then they came to my house and they very clearly laid out an exact plan. They had all of the CAD drawings. They had the sun shaded out. They had the tree structure. They gave me an ROI that allowed me to make a calculation of how much rebates I would get, how much money I would get, when I would get it. And they laid it all out in front of me. And I made my decision, and I spent the money, and I got the rebates, and I'm currently 2 years away from full payback on the system. That was an easy decision for me to make. It seems to me that while well-intended, especially regarding the school committee reaction to what was presented, this is going in reverse. I kept taking notes in this meeting. It was back of the envelope. We're way out ahead of our skis here. We don't really know that. We don't really know this. We don't really know that. This is the first meeting I've ever attended of this group, but I filled 2 pages with comments about how we don't really know this, we don't really know that. And from what I can gather, the school committee's reaction was indicative of them making the decision, yet there's already a $9 million warrant going in front of the town. And what Lois just said regarding getting support, it's hard to argue that solar is not great. I love it, but it's easy to argue that processes need to be followed, and people who make decisions regarding the ability for those incredible work to go forward should be involved before and not afterwards. And so I hope I'm getting my point across. I wanted to give an example of how easy the decision was for me. I hope you guys can fill in the right people and make them feel comfortable and make them feel aware of the great work that you're doing. And then just another comment on the actual meeting itself. And I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. It was very hard to watch different members of this committee try and make points, and have a couple members of the committee really feel like they were stifling those points based on the tension in the room in the first half of this meeting. It was very difficult for a first-time watcher of this meeting to feel that energy. Anyway, this is all well intended. Again, I love my solar. Solar, I believe, is an incredible free resource. What you guys are doing, the hours that you're putting in, is obviously a very noble and great cause, and one very hard to argue against. But it sounds like processes should be followed. People should be involved. Stakeholders should be informed to get the job that we all want done. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. I think I need a motion.
May I ask a question? And maybe
Yeah.
this was new business. I wanted to ask a question about Willard. And whether, I don't, maybe we don't know the answer to this, when that was implemented, is there a discount in rates given to the schools? I mean,
That was a pilot.
I made a comment.
That was a tiny little pilot thing that was done way
Okay.
back when with,
48K.
with
Not a
state
big
money.
deal.
Yeah, okay, I just.
With
I-
state money,
I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
It was state related
Yeah, it was-
monies, okay.
well, it's became Concord money, but.
It was,
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
it was a matching grant. I believe that
Grant.
the
Okay,
state
okay.
provided grant money and we had to match,
Oh,
to put it up. But I don't know whether, I might have been the light plant that matched. I don't
yeah,
know.
okay,
And I don't know if there's any benefit whatsoever, whether it's behind the meter system or not.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know the answer.
yeah. All right.
So I do need a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
A second.
All in favor?
36.
Aye.
Aye.
Well, there it is.
Not bad.
Thank you, everyone.
Click off the